All right, good people. I got good stuff today. Um, so I'm just gonna jump in because it's so much, and I want to make sure I have lots of time to answer questions, to go over stuff. Again, just as a reminder, it's my job to make sure you get the gifts. So if you have questions, ask them. If you need something said in a different way so it makes some better connections, you know, put that in a space. If you're thinking about a question, somebody has that question. So, again, this is your time, and I'm here to support and advance your work. The work you do is incredibly critical. So, let me do my part and help you in that work by bringing you these tools to put into your toolbox. Yes, that's the commitment today. All right, good. All right, share my screen. All righty. So, today is all about design thinking and human centered design. And we hear so much about this concept. You know, Ross said it, you're like, okay, we hear the words and all of the stuff, but what does it all really mean? So I'm going to really walk through those components so you get a good sense of the what. And we've been really making our way on this journey. And we got two parts to this work. Today, we're talking about the fundamentals, and then next time we're going to talk about some techniques, some real actual tools you can use to help sharpen your design thinking, human-centered design skills so that you can get some of the impact of the work in your organizations as well. So pretty good. So I want to talk about, I want to give you a reason to believe. So I like to open up with this new frontiers kind of pathways. And I'm going to then talk about how we can tap into design thinking. And I'm going to start you off on your journey of of being better design thinkers, and that's really sparking your creativity, strengthening your storytelling. Like that's the way, that's the journey forward. So that's what we're going to do today. And then I got some other sources from Stanford has some good stuff, and when we have our tool session. I have some of my other favorite tools that I use. We'll talk about some, ways to collaborate digitally. Just screw, it's just so good. So this two-part series, join both pieces when you can. Sign up for some other support, but we are going to get in. So I am going to give you that reason to believe. Now, I have a series of videos this session and maybe a podcast. I'm still debating on how I'm gonna roll that out. The podcast is life changing, so I think I'm gonna have to like figure out what to do on that side. But uh, I'm gonna the I'm gonna except for a few videos, I'm probably gonna drop them into the chat and have you watch them and you can use your own Wi-Fi. I'm in Shanghai today, and so I'm always worried about the making sure there's no lags in the video. So making sure you get the best experience. So I'm starting today with some new frontiers, and I want you to just an honor that we're really living in a time when your ability to innovate is going to be as critical as your ability to read, write, and do basic arithmetic. As we walk into these new times, that we need some skills that are going to help us be impactful in our work. And this is where, we can use the technology. This is where the design thinking can come incredibly into place. And I just want you to be excited and lean into the tools and figure out how the tools can help you be impactful in your work. So first I'm going to play this video. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Maybe it's about 3 minutes. And it's really around this notion of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of energy around it, and this is an old video, but still feels pretty relevant. So I dropped the link into the chat, and I want you to take a quick look at the video, and then we'll just talk a few minutes around what your response to that video is. So it's in the chat. Kimberly, I just put a video in the chat. We're watching it and just comment. So I'll re-put it in the chat so you can take a peek at it. Okay, I think I got eyes back. What'd you think? You buying? You putting it down? You picking it up?
I like the fact that it's this new frontier. However, it just says the fact that there are some things that technology will, you know, take us faster and more efficient. But the most
Mhm.
important things about humanness cannot be replicated or duplicated.
Yes.
So I like that it just said that because sometimes I think I see the converse,
Mm.
in a lot of dialogue. Oh, AI is coming and it's going to replace this. But there's just, you can't replace human qualities. And
Yes.
so that's what I like that. So coming from that perspective, I embrace, you know, even more advancement as long as we stay grounded in understanding the difference between humanness and technology.
That is so spot on and well said. Like if we could use technology to do some of the things that we could do less of so that we could lean into the things that we need to do more of, yes, where can we make that happen? What in our work can we put on autopilot so that we can do some of that critical work that takes our that expertise in order to make it happen? So when we can make the technology work for us, that's a win. Marcus, you had a hand up.
Yeah, I thought the video was very interesting, but the science fiction lover in me was like, "Oh God, it's gonna take over. We should have listened. We never listened." But at the same time, obviously grounding myself in reality, um, thinking that yes, we should not be afraid of technology. We should grow with where things are evolving right now with culture and humanity, but also it doesn't take away with who we are. it only enhances. So, like how the discussion with ChatGPT is, it's
Yes.
creating scenarios or creating um, narratives and stuff like that for people to be inspired by for writing stories and stuff like that. We did the same thing with the Sims game. You know, people, you would
Mm.
actually set the simulation up with the personality of the character and then see how it plays out. So it's, I'm not saying it's nothing new, but it's something to take, some data from, or in, then, I don't, I was muted the entire time, wasn't I?
No, no, no. You just muted yourself that last little bit.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Hmm.
All right. Well, that's it. So.
Thank you. Melissa, I see your hand as well.
Yeah, and I agree with them, but the also thing that got me was, are we the ones driving the change, or are we the ones just going along for the ride? And sometimes we get
Mm,
into funk where we're just on the ride and we're not realizing that, what, hey, we can be a valuable asset and be the driver and steer that to where we want it to go, and not just, we say that here all the time. Are you riding a horse, or or are you directing it and leading it in the way you want it to go? So yeah, don't just go along for the ride. Sometimes you have to take that driver's seat.
absolutely. Love that. Hmm. Dr. Shinturi.
Yeah, the thing that came up for me was policy with the
Mm,
change.
hmm.
Mm.
Hmm.
And not just policy for the sake of saying we did it, but policy at multiple levels, at the individual, at the agency, and at the government level. Because even though we can control our immediate environments, sometimes we're at the mercy of what is legislated. And those who may not be informed or have different viewpoints may, without thinking about it deeply, engage in participating in enforcing technology to be the driver, as opposed to remaining um, in a space where the human is the driver. And so when you get in, because I'm an engineer by my first profession, right? Before I got into the
Okay.
space of, before I got into the space of education and social services, my first passion was engineering and technology. And I know all too well the importance of looking at the fundamental foundation of why you're doing it, and the benefit, the ultimate benefit is going to have for humanity, and not just because we want to try it and see what it does. And sometimes we have to make sure that even in our agencies, that we're putting the right policies in place when we do embrace and AI, but don't do it just for the sake of, oh, everyone is doing it, but that there's a real need for it. And as each of the other persons that mentioned it, taking in consideration those points and putting those things in the policy of what not to do before we attempt to test and do it, and then we can't control it after it's out there, right? So those are my hesitations with it, but not to say that it should put fear in you to not do it, just that you do it with caution and you have the right policies in place, and to be a part of the conversation when it starts to get to a more governmental level, and being active and participatory in that process as well. So those are my little 2 cents.
Thanks. Wonderful. It's true. There are I know attorneys now who are in this space and thinking of, legislation and policies around what this technology means, but we have to be in this space as well so we can voice how what impact and what use we can gain from the work. So, and I think kind of your comment of, that is what is not, the humanness, you know is missing from that technology AI space. So how do we make sure there's accountability in that space? So all of this is just thought-provoking questions, but still very powerful. But we still need to lean into the technology and understand how it can help us, and so that we can focus on the work that is uniquely, human. So I'm going to go back to sharing my slides and take us right to my next idea on, ChatGPT that was mentioned, in just a bit ago. And there are some really neat things that we could do with the technology. So I'm going to give you an example of that. So, for example, I have this charge, prepare an email that encourages busy employees and volunteers to be a part of this capacity building workshop sponsored by the Sierra Health Foundation. We could have ChatGPT work on something like that while we do something different. So I'm going to give you an example of that. All right. And as a reminder, I'm in China, so I'm gonna have to use my phone because it has a little more enhanced security that I could use instead of my laptop Wi-Fi. So I want to go ahead and share my phone screen. And all right, hopefully you can see it. I think you can. You can see. So this is why it's so strange looking, because it is on my phone. And I'm going to paste that very message. Now I have to type it because I thought I prepped properly, but it went away. So prepare let me get my prompt here off of my, all right, here we go. Okay. So prepare a motivating email to encourage. Now, if I was really clever, I would just use my speaker, but anywho, employees and volunteers who are a part of Elevate You California to attend critical capacity building training workshop series sponsored by the Sierra Health Foundation. Okay, so what if you had to make that happen, and you could put this in Chat GPT and tell it to get to work? This is what happens pretty immediately. I mean, I can't, like, Chat GPT can't outthink me, but it can certainly outtype me. You know what I mean? And so in just a few moments, you have created this incredibly thoughtful email that now you can edit, copy, and paste into your actual email to send. So, I mean, it's not a bad first draft. Dear dedicated Elevate Youth California team, I hope this message finds you well amidst your busy schedules. Yes, we recognize and deeply appreciate the incredible commitment and passion you bring to your cause every day. Your hard work and dedication have made a significant impact on the lives of California's youth, and for that, we thank you. Like, who is ChatGPT? Like, that personality. We are excited to announce a fantastic opportunity that can help you elevate your skills and knowledge even further. The Critical Capacity Building Training Workshop Series, proudly sponsored by the Sierra Health Foundation. In our journey to empower and support California's youth, conscientious learning and growth are essential, and this workshop series is tailor-made for you. They don't even know what's in the workshop. You know what I mean? Like, what did ChatGPT know, right? Here's why you should mark the dates on your calendar. Unlock your potential. These workshops are designed to enhance your skills, knowledge, and capabilities, enabling you to excel in your roles, whether you're working directly with your youth or behind the scenes. Connect and collaborate. It's not just about the content, it's also about the connections you'll make. Engage with like-minded individuals, share experiences, and foster collaborations that can strengthen our collective impact. Investing in our future by attending these workshops. You're not just investing, blah, 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 blah. I gave it like a long sentence, and it spit me out great content to send out a thoughtful email. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and see what you got to say. Yes, wow, that's incredible. You can also give suggestions. Yes, less language, but absolutely. Okay, Mercedes is a big proponent of this. Okay, Carmen's using it already. Yes, yes, good, yes. It's scary. Don't be afraid of him. Yes, this is definitely useful. Administrative tasks, follow up, no more overthinking. Yes, I believe that's definitely a time saver. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Again, it's really great to have like an initial draft that you can build from. That first draft sometimes can be the thing that gets you, but now you have some content that you can deconstruct, respond to, edit, and then resend. It's a good move. Yes. Dr. Shinshori, yes.
Yeah, the thing that came up for me is, of course, my technical piece came up as I saw the immediate display of this compelling email message. What came up for me technologically was ChatGPT probably grabbed those words you said and went out to Google, and it took Sierra Health Foundation and the words that you use, and it did a quick search on the web of what Sierra publishes already, and kind of aggregated that into a really compelling message, which is why it came up so impressively the way that it did. And then it also knows how to write, right? Like the format for a business letter or an email, right? So you gave it some clues as to what to look for when you typed. So you told you wanted an email, so it already knew that it was going to draft an email, and you told it that you want it to speak about the programming, the EYC program and Sierra Health Foundation. So it probably did a really fast, which it can do faster than us, because it can just go right out there into the internet and just grab an aggregate of information and synthesize it really quickly into a really compelling letter. Well, where it may take us a couple of hours to do it, it only did it in a few minutes, right? So that's what came up for me. And I am a proponent of that kind of AI.
Yes.
It's the concern of the what you call it, anthropomorphism of AI to duplicate or replicate human beings is what I am not a proponent of. And that is where we have to be careful with the policies, like setting policies of what we will allow or what we will engage in, and not just at the individual level. So I just wanted to put that out there. So if anyone was wondering how did it do that, that's what came up for me, is that it really just took those cues from you, and it went and synthesized over the internet and grabbed all that it could grab and put it in a nice, compelling email for you. So that is beautiful AI that does no harm, right?
Yes.
So that's all I'm gonna.
It's a very useful tool.
Yeah. So thank you for letting me share that.
Absolutely, I love that. and it's I think that soon you will see, you know, skills and you know, prompt engineering is going to be a new job title. Like, how do you feed the machine the information so that it can provide what it is that can be useful for you to build from? Now, I saw in the comments, Natalie, your comment around losing your voice. Like, this is not to replace what you would say. This is to build upon. This is to give you something to stand on. So it's incredibly important that you use the tool in an impactful way. It's not a replacement tool. Like, it's a tool to, you know, for you to tap into as a time saver, as a way to sharpen, as a way to, you know, so I think that that's a very fair thing. But I think you know, using the tool in the way that it can be impactful is really the work in it. Lowell, I love always to hear your
Hey,
voice in this space. Yes.
you can hear me, right?
I can, yes.
Yes. So for me, I agree on both sides, but for me personally, I do like it because I have a tendency to think faster than I type. So I know what I want to say in my head and I type it. And then when I go back and read it, it doesn't make sense. And I have a tendency to leave out the thee, thou, that, those, like that. So yeah, I do agree that you put in the words that are key, and then yeah, it goes out and searches Google and searches out whatever and puts it together that looks like a really nice package. And then that doesn't mean that once you get it back, you use that exact verbiage. You have to put your
Exactly.
own spin on it because one size does
Yes.
not fit all. You know, whoever put in that verbiage for AI, there was a human that put it in there. So, and a human had to put together whatever the technology or whatever the coding is to go and grab it. You have to take that information and make it your own. So I'm kind of for it.
Mhm. And of course, first Henry started off in the chat talking about, "Ooh, this scary for older people." Then he was like, "Wait a minute now, how can I monetize this?" I was just, we done went, he done went 180 degrees. So let me speak to this on the proposal question, because I do get that all the time. That's like the next piece. And again, like, there's one of the limits. So I think that ChatGPT is up to date up to 2020 or 2021. So it doesn't have the most recent information, you know, so you would not come across well in your, you know, grant proposals if you don't like talk about, you know, recover from COVID and, like, you know what I mean? Like, so you can't depend on the Chat GPT to do the work for you. And the thing that makes you distinctive is the experiences that your organization brings to the work, and you know, can you get that off your website? You know, so just being mindful of using the technology for what it's good for, and making sure that you put your handprint on the components that make your work compelling. Mm-hmm. Kadrian, let me know if I'm saying that incorrectly, because I'm gonna correct myself if I'm not.
Good morning, Dr. Madden. It's Kedrian. It's all good. It's all good.
Kadrian, yes, yes.
Good morning, everybody.
Good
I just
morning.
love your training. I love listening. I love like just the things
Yay.
that you're offering, the resources. What I wanted to add to it is that you can also verify policy with ChatGPT. With nonprofit, there's so many ever-changing policies. And so just to like aid as a tool, it's a great resource to verify certain protocols, which will save you like time on the phone or searching the internet or calling around, especially in California, because we have so many protocols. So I just wanted to add that too.
I love that. Thank you. Jamila.
Good morning. I am also a proponent of AI, and like I echo everything everyone said. But sometimes the problem that I have with AI, especially like as a millennial and like seeing my nieces and nephews who now they're 6, 7, 9, grown up, is just I'm just worried about how they're actually utilizing AI because they're just so young to be like, I don't want to lean on AI all the time. My niece now, I have her read a book and write me a summary. And I learned that she actually just go to Chat AI and then like summarize the book and bring it to me. And while I'm like really proud of her because she's up to date with technology, and I'm just no, I want you to read the book. I want you to learn
Yes.
to write, cursive. I want you to understand things and I want to know how you actually. Sometimes I have a problem with that. And I know someone also mentioned voice, so it's like you said, it's up to us to obviously have a draft and put it into ChatGPT and provide us with a comprehensive sort of like plan. And I've used it for a proposal, but sometimes it takes my voice out. The way I communicate, I
Yes.
tend to be more of like on a softer. I could be assertive, but that's just not who I am. Like when I talk, I like to use both my emotion and also like my the other side to communicate. Chat GPT which I like sometimes, I really like, and it just makes me sound so like robotic. So there's obviously like the good side, the bad side. We just need to utilize it, but I'm just so worried about the young people. Like, I mean, my generation, for instance, I feel like we lost that like opportunity to learn how to type, how to write in cursive, how
Yes.
to do a lot of things
Mhm.
that like a lot of my older siblings know how to do. And I imagine I don't know what my nieces and nephews will miss out on. And I don't want them to just grow up to be like, oh, Chat GPT, AI, like I wanted you guys to be like individuals with like thought process with like yeah, so that's my thought.
No, it yours and higher education around the world. I have never been in so many discussions around AI. You think about, we get the, you know, you know, K through 12, but higher education, even it is just ringing a bell throughout higher education on is this plagiarism? How do we make sure that the students use the technology not to replace them doing the work? So you're spot on. But it's just another disruptor, and we need to be aware, and we need to use the tools so that it works for us. So again, you got to figure out how to use the tools in ways that can be impactful for you, but always know that they are tools. So good. Right? Cliff Notes, that's funny. Or the calculator. Oh man, higher education went bananas when students want to use the calculator in the classroom. So it's always something. Yes. And then I want to show you another tool. And this one I've discovered because I was trying to build some online training and some of the best practices around it. Gone are the days. Like teaching online is not the same. I mean asynchronous. So students or learners are on their own, taking in the content, doing some activities, and you can't teach online the same as you would in person. And even when you're teaching in person, you shouldn't just, spend 3 hours doing full lectures, not engaging and things like that, right? And so some of the best practices around, you know, asynchronous learning, it just suggests series of short videos, like 1 minute to at most 5 minutes. And so I was creating this content and I was like, oh my God, when am I going to have time to record all these videos? And this is when I came across this next piece. Now, I'm going to tell you, um, it's not my voice because I have bronchitis, but first I'm going to play it and then I'm going to talk about it. So going back to share my screen. Share screen. Oh, wait. Stop for a second. Go back to share screen. Yep. Okay, cool. Hold on. Boom. All right. And so not only the prompt engineering, but I'm going to share a video that I made for a project at the university for we did a symposium. So here it is.
Welcome to the Linfield University School of Business Yet Symposium. In the past year, leaders have been confronted with a lifetime's worth of disruption and crises: global conflict, energy uncertainty, food shortages, accelerating inflation, and severe climate events. Natural and human-made disruptions will only persist. To enable long-term, sustainable, and inclusive growth, today's business leaders and policymakers must strengthen resilience beyond a survival capacity. Resilience is about taking a step back, looking at the situation from different perspectives, and finding solutions. It's about embracing the challenge and learning from it. With a growth mindset, our skills and abilities can be developed. We understand that failing fast is a chance to learn and grow. We have the confidence to take risks and try new things. Agility is about being able to pivot and adjust to changing conditions. It's about being open to new ideas, being creative, and having the courage to take action. As business leaders, we have an important role to play in developing resilience, a growth mindset, and agility in our teams. By doing so, we can create an environment that encourages innovation and thriving. Thank you for listening. This presentation features the Dr. Madden avatar. 90% of the narrative was generated by AI in under 10 seconds. Technology is incredible.
All right. So, avatars, which we typically think of as cartoon-like, which they are, but now you can build avatars in your likeness. You can, it's so much that you could do. Now, again, I didn't do the voiceover because I had bronchitis, but this is just so all of that was just an avatar done, and I used a different tool to put in some prompts to draft a presentation deck. We need to be aware of the technology and how we can leverage and use the technology so that we can spend more time doing the tremendous amount of work that we all have to do to continue to have the impact. So I just want to encourage you to lean into the technology in ways that it could support your work, not replace the specialties that you bring to the impactfulness that you bring to your work. That makes sense? But yes. Yes. So the Dr. Madden avatar. It's a crazy thing. We have to keep up. I think that our communities need us to keep up, Yes. Yes, go ahead, Dr. Shashir. Yes.
I was interested, I really liked the presentation you just shared, and was wondering how much of that did you produce and how much of it was AI?
I had I gave it some prompts and then I went in and just did some editing, and then put together the presentation, and then I just tweaked it a little bit. Honestly, it was a good chunk of the text was just generated because I had the three sort of terms I wanted to use, and then there was some part I pulled from my own research in the beginning to ground it in like a real kind of scenario.
So the video was your production or the AI production? The video of you, because it was your mouth was moving and
yeah. Oh no, that was purely an avatar. That was purely an avatar. I
Okay.
created an avatar, so I have my own avatar, and then I can feed it to say anything.
Oh, okay. So it could have used, so I'm just trying to understand here. It could have used your voice and not a computer generated voice.
Correct.
The only
I have
reason why
bronchitis.
the only reason why I am asking this is because we use a lot of educational technologies in our online platforms for our programming.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
we have a lot of video presentation, but what I find the most interesting is when you are able to maintain the human element in your presentations, the video element that the youth and the kids and the adults are able to respond better to it than when it's robotic like that. That's the only reason why I was kind of wondering
Yes.
how much of it was for you, because I know when I get on a phone call, and this is kind of like
Yes.
similar but a little off topic. When I get on a phone call and I call, like, say for example, this morning I called Progressive Insurance to make a payment, and I got the auto AI, hello, how you
Yes.
doing? How can I'm not like, oh, can I get a customer service? That's the first thing. I want to hear a human being. I want to talk to someone who can really have that conversation with me, because it's not just going to be in your database where you're going to look up my answer and try to give me a response. And so I was pleasantly surprised when I said, I want to speak to a customer service rep, that the AI said, but I may be able to help you. Right. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna see what you can do today. Right. So they helped me make a payment. I got my payment taken care of. And then they gave me my confirmation number, but they said it too fast. And I'm like, can you write that down? Could you repeat that? And I didn't try to make it, I can't make this up, right? I was like, I didn't get it. Can you repeat it? And it paused for a moment and then it repeated it. So it heard what I said, right? And I was like, okay, that's all right. I'm cool with the AI all right now, because I got a response that was pleasantly surprising. But at the same time, I don't want it thinking for me. I don't want it making decisions for me, right? So it's like, where did that stop? So I was just kind of interested in how much you controlled what happened as the finished product, as opposed to the AI producing it, right? And you just having to use what it created. So that was my little 2 cents on that.
Mm-hmm. No, you can edit the slides how you want, and then when you're finished and you're content with what it says, you just send it. It will generate for you. And Synthesia is the website. Melissa?
I love this. This is all new to us. I'm
Yes.
like you said, I'm the Cliff Notes generation, So all this technology, AI, is just really like mind-blowing sometimes to me. And we have a lot of youth who do a lot of our presentations and that kind of stuff. Is it capable, and how would we go about translating, because we do a lot of our presentations in multiple languages? So this is something that just is like expands on that, where sometimes I don't have somebody who can go along with us to a presentation and be able to translate in another language, and yet to have this presentation accessible and be able to generate, multiple avatars, or even just one avatar that's able to communicate what we need to get across.
That's probably one of the most exciting things about the avatar piece, is that you can have it in, they probably have 800 different languages and dialects that you can present that in. So imagine being able to, build your site and communicate across different communities and languages that they understand. It's a powerful play when you think about it.
Yeah, it's just that was what I just gathered from you saying. It's an avatar. It's not, it's not physically me, and I'm not struggling. Somebody's not struggling hearing me speak in Portuguese or another language that I'm a little bit familiar with, but I can't, it would be perfect.
Yes. Excellent. Yep. Henry.
Well, I'm in the pre-Cliff Notes generation, back when they said Westinghouse was the most important, or Progress was the most important product. Okay, so I had 3 questions, but after Miss Melissa, I have a 4th. Let me go through it right quick. Where can I get one of those? What's the learning curve? Can I use it for my quarterly reports? And is it mobile?
So the Chat GPT is like $20 a month. It can be free, but you have to it's sort of based upon availability if you don't pay the subscription fee. But $20 a month, people pay that for coffee, you know. So the
Starbucks.
Synthesia, right, for a couple of Starbucks, you know. Synthesia has free options as well. You know, I love free tools, but to get the avatar, there's a cost for that, and you have to have a subscription model to do some of that work as well. So yeah, so these tools are accessible, and ChatGPT is just one piece. There's Chat PDF, so if you feed it PDFs and it can summarize the information for you. There's art, so if you want to create a logo or create sort of some imagery, it's just really, it's amazing. So just lean into it. Sarah, what you got for us? Oh wait,
Yes.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
No, go ahead. I'll come back to Henry. I know he said 4 questions. I think I only got 2 of them.
So I know people who use Synthesia and stuff. I'm in the learning and development world for, you know, my day job. But I know, and I can't recall what it's called, but there's that sense of, you know, when you're watching a movie with, you know, and it's dubbed, you get that effect with these things. And sometimes that can lower a learner's or a viewer's attention span to those things. So you have to balance when you use it and when you don't. If it's super critical, you know, you might want to not use it, right? So that you can make sure that someone's getting the information without having that displacement effect in their head of like, wait, their words and what their mouth aren't lining up. And that's the issue with this type of AI. You know, if you have the cartoon avatar, you expect that disconnect, you know, a little bit more, but as the things get closer and closer to looking human, there's more and more of that cognitive issues. So I just wanted to state that. But I think in general, it's nice because, you know, foreign languages, of course, you're not going to be able to always translate those and things like that. So there's definitely use cases, but there's also, you know, times that you shouldn't.
Yes, but I'll tell you, as a person who's taught in front of live classes, sometimes I can't get that cognitive snap either. So
that's true.
That's so funny. No, Sarah, thank you for that. Yes. Henry, did we get all 18 of your questions answered? You know.
Imagine the learning curve is based on how often you practice with it.
Absolutely.
Then that other question about quarterly reports.
I don't think that ChatGPT could do your quarterly reports. It could probably, you know, you could probably feed it some information and just say, rewrite this in a, you know, business tone or something. And maybe it can give you some insight in that regard, you know, but it wouldn't know how to write your, you know, you could feed it some information. Again, prompt engineering is going to be a real thing real soon. So, but try it.
Okay.
But someone put in the chat too, be mindful. It is, they call it hallucinations. This is a fancy word for just flat out telling lies, you know, so they call it hallucinations when they start to make up data points and things like that. And there was a story about this attorney who tried to have the ChatGPT prepare a brief, and it just made up all of these false cases and all. So again, it's a tool, remember. So all right, good. And it's true, Amanda's from a person who has been trying to use Google Translate because my Chinese is not that great. It is really interesting to see some of the Synthesia do some of the multiple languages. So, and I've played it for other you know, people who speak different languages. Like it was around someone who spoke German, and I was like, is this real? Does this come across right? And they were like, oh my God, it's surprisingly, accurate. So yes. May I please have a quick idea of the relationship between prompt engineering and ChatGPT? Well, so the ChatGPT will generate the information, but you have to feed it. And so the prompt engineer is the person feeding the technology, the information. So when I, put the sentence in on to create the email, I was very intentional on saying, okay, this is an email, who it's from, who it's to, what are some of the components, and then they could take that information and convert it into what it was that I was requested. So it's the same sense of, people say something like garbage in, garbage out. So what a prompt engineer can do is give you goodness to put in so that you can get a better output. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. All right. More slides. All right, share my screen. So under this kind of space, I want to introduce design thinking because I think it's incredibly useful. We've seen it in so many places, on these magazine covers, all of this discussion about design thinking, but what is it? And the first thing that I want you to recall something I talked about maybe, the last session or 2 sessions ago. This idea that language enables you to see, not to speak. And so I wanted to talk about some of this, the language of design thinking, because, when you get this language, you can see the world differently, and it allows you to do different things so you can have different outcomes. So here's some language. Design is a comprehensive approach to problem solving and transformation. Because I want you to leave this session seeing yourselves as designers, seeing yourselves as design thinkers. Design is just a way of looking at the world with the eye towards changing it. I would argue that you do that in your work, or you have that commitment to the work that you do. Design is the human capacity to plan and produce desired outcomes. It is the ongoing expectation that each project is a new opportunity to create something remarkable. And then here's my leaf to the tree. A solution-finding approach utilizing collective creativity to strengthen individuals, teams, and organizations. This is what design is. Now, people think, is this graphic design, industrial design? It's just, what is this? This design talk, and designers must be able to see not just what is, but what might be. Like your ability to see the futures, to see possibilities. Designers are also makers. They sketch and build, giving form to ideas. I don't know how to draw nothing, but I have my little iPad and my sketchbook, and I'm drawing circles and flow charts and arrows, and because the work that we do is so complex that we have to move away from this notion that we can think linearly and come up with viable solutions. The work we do is complex, so we need to be able to go from A to B and B to J and R to D and N to Y, because that's the kind of work that we have to we do, and to think through different scenarios, to start to run plays. Well, if we do this, what will happen then? Well, okay, if that happened, then what could we do after that? So we're constantly thinking through the complexity of the situation so that we don't cause unintended consequences or wicked problems. A wicked problem is just you create a solution, and in that solution, you inadvertently create another challenge, another problem. So we have to embrace that complexity, and leaning into your ability to be design thinkers, to be designers, and embracing design is one of the ways that you can work through some of that work. So designers, they take that faint glimmer of possibility and make it visible and real to others. I would argue you do that in your work all the time. I want you to see yourselves as designers. So terms that I want you to take in. This idea of design thinking. And again, you're moving past this linear thinking, embracing that complexity, looking for connections, looking for these overlapping spaces. Tim Brown uses this idea of inspiration, ideation, implementation. I love that. I use that in my work. And for me, in practitioner speak, inspiration is the equivalent of a vision. Ideation is sort of like, a SWOT analysis, and implementation is a logic model for me when I'm using this design space working with practitioners. Again, this design thinking, your ability to imagine a future that doesn't yet exist. That's the design thinking. Design thinking is your ability to engage the end users in the creation of a solution, because what people co-create, they sustain. So when you think about the power of design thinking, it can be a powerful pathway forward. The second term that I want you to embrace is this idea of a design attitude. And so what design attitude does, and I'm going to come out of my slides just so I can speak directly. This design attitude, what that is that, even as faculty, we often teach our students, for example, to have what's called a decision attitude. And a decision attitude is that you encounter a challenge and you pick choice A or choice B. But historically, choice A or B have not been good options for you. Why are choice A and B still on the docket for choices? Like, you need to have a design attitude. That means you're like, the solution doesn't exist that works for, the young people I'm trying to support and serve. I need a new solution. I need some different ways of doing. That's a design attitude, that you embrace this idea that the solution doesn't exist and you need to create that solution. That's a powerful pathway forward, And then the third term is all about this redesign. And it's just your ability that to create a workaround. If you can embrace this notion that, you're going to have some challenges and hurdles. And once they arrive, you know that you need to work through them, get around them, figure out other ways of doing. And when you do that, when you embrace this idea of redesign, you're building resilience in your way forward. And so when the challenge comes up, you're like, I was waiting for this. I've been prepping for this ability to create a workaround or to do some things different, lean in a different way so that I can make something happen. So again, those are really powerful terms when you think about this space, So I would pause for a second just to see if who's picking up what I'm putting down, this notion of seeing yourself as a designer, leaning into design and not thinking of it as just something completely related to architecture or something related to graphic design or some of the things we typically think of as designers, but designers in that we need to be the people who create a new way forward, that we are the people who can create something from nothing, that we are the ones who can make something visible and real when others can't see it always. Mm-hmm. Yes, Dr. Sure, yes.
Oh, yeah, you are. I'm just sitting over here just grinning ear to ear because I'm like, you're preaching to the choir for me, because it's like it's like what I'm passionate about, and that's embracing what I like to call unknown certainty.
Mm-hmm.
And that is creating from nothing, creating from scratch. And if you step into that space, you have to be willing to let go of what you think you know. And don't be afraid to tap into other disciplinary areas. Like when we had our one-on-one, I kind of mentioned that a little bit, how you have to be willing to go outside of your norm. And if you don't know, then what's wrong with researching and finding out in order to apply it to the problem that you might be dealing with or the solution that you're trying to come up with or create for your purpose of what you're trying to accomplish. And I just love that mindset, that you embrace a design mindset and don't be afraid to open up. And if you don't know, research it, Google it, find out more information about it, and then find out ways you can actually duplicate it or create it or manifest it for yourself. a lot of times the best solutions are the ones that aren't really available or off the shelf. They're the ones that are really simple thoughts that you have. You may not know how to accomplish it, but once you research on that subject, you might find that you already have most 50% of the solution. You just now need to manifest it in some way. And it expands your knowledge, your skills, your capability, and it gives you something that you can work with readily right then and there by creating it. And so I just really love this whole workshop right here. Just love it.
Yeah,
I'm in love with
excellent. Wonderful.
this workshop.
Yay, good. Exactly. That we need to, because some of these default solutions have been created without our voices, without our thinking, without our brilliance in this space. So we out with those solutions. We need to create ones that are viable, that build upon and leverage and have voices in them that make sense for the people who they impact. And so that's what this is. This is human-centered design. This is involving end users in the creation of solutions, because what people co-create, they sustain. This is human-centered design, where we're interested in voices and knowledge and know-how, and that we have the power to create a future that is impactful for us, that the people closest to the problem are closest to the solution. This is the power of human-centered design. And this is the things that like get me excited about the possibilities and the tools when you try to tap into all of that goodness. So I'm going to share some more slides. All right, so okay, and this term is one of my favorite tools from my doctoral program, bricolage. Bricolage, French word, and essentially, bricolage is the ability to create something from nothing. And the people who practice bricolage, they're called bricoleurs. So you should leave today knowing that you are not only a designer but a bricoleur. So because all of you, operate with not enough time, talent, or treasure, but you still create something. You still move forward. You still find ways. That's bricolage, and you are bricoleurs, again, skillful designers, and your ability to utilize resources to perform the necessary tasks. So, yes, I was like, I'm paying how much for this PhD, and this is what I'm learning. And then I love it because you can see design all over the place. My very favorite is just everyday design. But here are some examples that are, probably familiar and probably unfamiliar. So, yes, we get design from an architectural standpoint, but here's it in an even more compelling way. So, for example, the Katrina Cottage. So, FEMA trailers have always been like awful. So small, cramped, dark, unsightly, uncomfortable. And the idea was that, oh, well, these are just temporary, housing that, people are need because some natural disaster has impacted them. But when they actually took a moment to, engage end users in the design and looking around to see what's happening, they noticed that people were still living in trailers from Hurricane Andrew, which was 13 years ago. So this notion of temporary housing was like a myth. And so then the question was, how might we create temporary housing that was decent, dignified, and worked in the long term? And when you change the narrative in that way, you can design something that's impactful for the people who need and they can be empowered in thinking about how to best serve themselves, how to be served appropriately. Another example to me that I think is this amazing design example. This is not in every city, but Annie Casey Foundation funded some work around, and they have the Centers for Working Families in some cities across the country. And it just talked about like, how are families able to make it? You look at these working poor families, like everybody working in the house, but they have jobs that just pay a little bit more than minimum wage. A big chunk of their resources are spent on housing, a big chunk on childcare. They're purchasing healthcare. they're paying significant finance charges. And what they discovered was that these working families are having this annual deficit of around $13,000. How are they managing? Are they borrowing to stay afloat? Are they not paying bills? Then they get credit issues, and then you have this vicious negative cycle. Are they going without food? So many things. And so to me, this was an amazing example of using design to come up with a viable pathway. And so before the Centers for Work and Family, you have this $13,000 annual deficit. And they realized that if you added these 3 legs to the stool, 3 points to determine a plane, this kind of solid foundation, that you could take a family from having a $13,000 annual deficit to actually having, having some savings. And so, workforce development is a part of the solution, but it doesn't solve the entire challenge. So if you're able to get someone a better job, that's very helpful, but it makes for less loss. But if you add workforce development and access to benefits, so things like, you add in things like earned income tax credit. Families are working, they should tap into these benefits. Child care tax credit, child tax credit. When you can tap into these benefits, now you can take a person from the red into the black. And then when you add that third leg, then you can move this affordable financial services. No more payday loans, no more check cashing, no more emergency, or no more, my favorite, you get your income taxes done, and, you get charged because you get the money up front versus waiting for the income tax check to come. So it's just all of this, predatory financial services for working poor. It's, if we can make affordable financial services available, then we can really start to be in the savings space. So to me, this is design thinking at its best, you're coming up with impactful, viable solutions. This is stuff I love. And then I offer a third example that I thought was incredibly unique. So in San Diego, California, the Jacob Center for Neighborhood Innovation, imagine you have this sort of a strip mall, and they sold, residents could own a piece of the block by buying shares in the strip mall. And to me, you can buy lottery tickets. Why not be able to buy a share in the at the neighborhood plaza that has the grocery store in it? And then I'm going to shop at that grocery store. I'm going to make sure people in my community shop there too, so we can support that investment. So these are the kind of innovative ideas we can have when we embrace this notion of design thinking. So I'm going to pause for a bit and see if there's questions or comments. Thoughts, questions? Yes, co-create, absolutely. Mm-hmm. All right, design thinking. We're going to do some more tools next session, but I also want to talk about the other really powerful piece when it comes to design thinking, and that's your ability to tap into your creativity, because that becomes super important. So, sharing my screen. So, because, creativity is critical, because, we don't always, most of us have very busy jobs that are very demanding. So this ability to be able to take a walk in the forest and be inspired and be creative, maybe we don't have time for that. Maybe we need to build that skill set, that muscle set, so that we can be creative as we need to be, with deliberateness, with awareness, and with practice it happens. So to do that, it's important that we unpack this idea of perception versus imagination. There's a difference, and the difference is important. When we think about perception, it's all about sense making. We see something in the world, and our mind's eye can see that thing as well, But sometimes we need to move away from that sense making and embrace that sense giving, that imagination, where we don't have to see the thing in the world yet, but we can still see it in our mind's eye. When we can decrease the sense making, decrease that perception, and increase the sense giving, increase imagination, this is really when we can catapult our design thinking skills and ability. Here's what I mean. I'm going to drop this video into the chat, and in it, it's just like you'll see this image of a mask. It's like a Halloween mask, and you know that a Halloween mask is hollow. It's a mask, you put it on your face, but the mind's eye think it's looking at a face, and so as the mask turns around and you're looking at the hollow part of the mask, it almost looks like it's sticking out, and it's convex instead of concave, because the way that you're thinking is, when you see a face, you don't ever think of a nose being as concave. You see it as being convex. You see it as sticking out. So here's the video. It's just like a minute or so. Take a look at it and see if you see what I'm talking about. And again, this is perception. This is sense making. You see the mask? You see it as it turns? You see the face? Sense making. Marcus. Again, your mind is so powerful. The mind is a powerful thing. You know, when we can remember that, boy, can we leverage it. Mm-hmm. Yes. Thanks, Edwin. Okay, sense making. All right, I'm going back to share my screen. Okay. Okay, what does this say? Somebody unmute themselves and tell me what that says.
Ice cream is good.
Yes, sense making. You don't even see it and you know what it says. Okay, what about this one? What does this say? Somebody unmute themselves and tell me.
You can read
You
this.
can beat this.
You can beat this or
Yes.
read this. Yeah,
Yes,
you can
yes,
read
good,
this.
yes. Okay, what does this say? Out loud, unmute yourself. What does it say?
The phenomenal power of the
The
human mind, according to
paleo
research at
meal
Cambridge University. It doesn't
power.
matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and the last letter be in the right place. The rest can
Sense
be a
making. Sense making. Making sense out of nonsense, right? You're not looking at the thing fully. You're reading words that are scrambled. Sense making. The mind is incredibly powerful. Perception is incredibly powerful. Making sense out of nonsense. But what we need to amplify is the sense giving. Share my screen again. That was good work, job. That was good job too. There are three types of people: those who see when they're shown, and those who do not see. I want you to be one of those first two. Those who see when they are shown, and those who can see. So, what do you see here? What do you see when you look at this image? Unmute yourself and tell me.
I see a face.
Yep, face. Anything else?
Liar.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you see the word? Yes. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, what do you see here? Bees? Close. Two dead flies. I guess they could be bees, yes. Or
Like,
is it a race day? Or is it a line at the bathroom? And there's a line at the ladies' room all around the world. I'm just here to tell you. Is it laundry day? Or is it the day at the pool? Or a day at the beach? So all great acts of genius began with the same consideration. Do not be constrained by your present reality. That's incredibly important. So, what do we see here? Prosthetics? Yes, exactly. Or could it be something else? What if we imagined it to be something else? What if we decided that we were going to let go of the sense making and embrace the sense giving and do something completely different? All right. So, and what do you see in this last one? And I'm gonna drop this video in the chat. There you go. You can watch that. It's just a couple minutes. No, not a couple minutes, like a minute and a half. So it's a cardboard box, or could it be something else? What do you think? Yes, clever. Love that. So I want to take a pause and take some questions. Any thoughts or questions about today so far? Yay. Yay. Thoughts about design thinking. Thoughts about questions. Thank you, Henry. That's right. Thinking outside of the box. That's exactly right. Yes. Ross, if you're available, I know you're opened up thinking about getting this design thinking explained. How you feel about it? You feeling some understanding?
So I'm doing a lot of work in Africa, and I'm thinking about those communities and how, necessity is the mother of invention, and that
Amen.
cardboard desk was on it. But I'm just thinking about so I know the most innovative and creative people are on the continent of Africa, and I know the least amount of technology resources are there. So I'm already thinking how do I solve that? Because if we could get the technology to the folks, that want work but jobs don't exist and want to make, what I'm saying? Colonialism left a different mark on slavery, and so there's just a whole mental thing going on. So, but these are scientists that are, not able to really develop those skills. So I'm just thinking that's where I'm at. So I would love if you could elaborate, give me a pathway to success in that direction. That'd be
I get on my calendar. I got solutions. And next session, we're going to talk about some tools So first I want you to understand conceptually, and then I want you to have some tools to help you get to the sweet spot. So yes. All right. I'm ready for this. That's good, Melissa. Yay. Let's see, John.
Question.
Yes.
At what level should design thinking be introduced? Elementary, middle, high, secondary?
You know, I think that it's interesting because, well, here's what we know. We know that children are the most creative humans. And the data tells us by the time we get to age 21, we are the least creative that we have ever been. So we have to retrain, you know, ourselves to be creative again. And creativity is a powerful human trait that we're teaching out of us. So, you know, this is techniques that we should never lose, but we are educated in systems that push the creativity out. And it's interesting, like in the grad program I designed, it's all about rebuilding, sharpening emotional intelligence and design thinking and innovation, because those are powerful skills. So, and my graduate students are always like, you know, why don't we teach this sooner? So, yeah, I think it's important. And again, John, to your point, you know, a C system available across the board, just matter of policy. It should require design thinking or special creativity to get basic justice and equity. Yeah, no, it shouldn't. But when you don't have access to them, here's a tool that you can use to tap back into them. So how do you reconcile design thinking with basic equity and restorative justice? I don't know if I understand the question. So ask it, put your voice in the space so I can better understand what to, you know, because I'm saying here's some tools that we can immediately have access to raise voice, you know. So I will welcome you I welcome you in the space. Technology doesn't have a lot to do with what, yes, exactly. I love that, Connie. Yes. Jessica, I see your hand.
Jumping off of that question about how early one should start. I've worked with like all ages of like children, and early on at like toddler stage, they were already being creative with so many different things that were just like, whoa, like I didn't even know that you could use that in that way. So I think it's early as early can be starting off. That would be ideal. And then, like you said, not losing it as you go. Yes. Because a lot of the teachings that I do, I kind of, with the youth that I work with, is I do it in a childlike way. And all of them are always so engaged because they don't have that very often. So it's really interesting to see that be something that is innovative when it should be a thing already.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think that's so spot on. Yeah, Henry, you're right. Like, you know, it's active learning. It's experiential learning. This is what this is. And this is powerful. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, you know, like we were called in a while back to an elementary school by the principal, and they had some difficulties with a lot of their youth, being that they were in a really diverse environment. And so we went in with our program, and, you know, the thing that we found was that there was not enough activity to burn off some of that energy. And they were you know, everywhere. And then, of course, when you factor in, you know, when you say, look at the solution to help design a method to solve that problem, the home experience was less than ideal for one reason or another, both parents working and not having the ability to sit down with them and look over stuff. And so we went in and we gave them activities. And the things that we were doing, now that I think about it, I was always scared of that term of design thinking. I'm like, whoa, I'm not an engineer. So how would I impart design thinking to these young folks? Because not knowing the term design thinking, I'm thinking engineering or some high technical, being an old fart, I'm like, I can't introduce because I'm not an engineer. Well, I used to be a locomotive engineer at the railroad, but I'm just saying that term. And so I'm better equipped.
Yes. You're a design thinker all day. And a bricoleur. Got turkey on Thanksgiving and you make a turkey salad the next day. That's bricolage. Good. All right. So the next little bit is just some stuff in your toolbox. So hold on, let me share my screen. So I put some resources from Stanford. They have a design school, a D school. And so it's just some resources around design thinking. But, our next session, I'm gonna use some tools that I really love. But, people love Stanford, so I thought I would give them a little something. But we're not gonna use these tools when I teach next week. We're gonna use some stuff that I love. So we're gonna have some real tools in the toolkit next time, so tune back in. And the other piece I want to talk about is storytelling, because this powerful component of creating this future and using your storytelling is really important. So I just want to talk a couple slides on that, so before I let you go today, and also give you a challenge. So sharing my screen back. So just remember that, when we are told facts, we often immediately try and, decode meanings, into them. But when we're told stories, different parts of our brain lights up and we activate in a way as if we're experiencing the story firsthand. So stories are a powerful tool that we can use because they travel so far. Like, you might have met a person, you may not remember their name, but you could completely remember the story that they told you about themselves or something connected to them. So stories are extremely memorable, and you can recount the information and you can communicate information so much nicer when you can use stories. And stories have been around since the beginning of time, in cave paintings, through language and books, online. You can see this evolution of storytelling all around us. And we should tap into that ability to tell stories. And there's a lot of good intelligence on how we can tell stories. Books, we can model books, how we, what's our favorite story? How can we tell a story that can increase empathy or make people sensitive or describe the impact that we're having in our work? Sometimes we need to get to the point when it comes to telling the story. Like, what are we talking about? What's the one big idea that we want to convey? What's the one thing that we want to be known for? We need to make sure that we're conveying the emotion. That's incredibly important, the empathy, so that people can make those connections and it can feel very real. And practice, again, what it is that we're talking about. Practice makes perfect, or making sure you're telling your story and people are connecting with that story. So, and we see storytelling in businesses all the time. There's a great story at the heart of so many successful businesses. So, for example, when you think about, Tom's shoes, You have to own a pair of Tom shoes, but you know, Tom shoes is you buy a pair of Tom shoes, and what happens? They donate a pair somewhere. Now, mind you, wherever they donate that pair of shoes to is disrupting that whole local economy's, local shoemaker. But nobody's talking about that. People just talking about the story of uh of Tom shoes, or so it's really powerful when you can think about ways that you can tell a story and be memorable. All right, sharing back my screen. Oh, wrong screen. That's that Stanford stuff. All right. So, and why it works is that, you know, in business, you can see that stories can improve advocacy of a brand. They can expand awareness of the brand. You can reach new audiences, and businesses often see when there are stories about their brand that they can convert into sales. And so we could learn from business on how we can create stories. And the data also suggests that, nearly 80% of adults think it's a good idea for a brand to tell stories. More than 50% would buy from a brand if they love the story. 66% of people believe the best stories are from and about regular people. We can validate with the rise of influencers. 43% of all adults who want brand stories, they want them to be funny. So there's humor that we can play, empathy, humor. So there's really these sort of like heartbeats that we can tap into. And the stories travel so fast because it's sort of like gossip. And this is why gossip carries so fast. So it's a form of gossip storytelling, and it's contagious, and we can connect to it. So it's a really powerful place when you think about the work. And so, here's an example. I'm going to drop this link in the chat. I'm going to warn you that it uses profanity, but watch it through to the end and you'll see what I'm trying to get at. So, dropping a link in there. All right. All right, what do you think? Thank you, Tatiana. Billy, you might have some blocks on your computer at work. Okay, thank you, Crystal. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Perspective. I think that's excellent. All right, sharing screen back. Got it. Okay, yay. Yes. Okay, yes, excellent. there's also lots of ways that we can connect with, customers, tell our stories. We've seen it happen through presentations. Sometimes we have very, charismatic staff people. Maybe we create new words, that help us, talk about the impact that we're having or get excited about the work we're doing. Sometimes through text or email campaigns, we can make those happen. And sometimes through podcasts. And this is what I'm going to leave you with, because this podcast is so powerful. It is probably the most impactful podcast I've ever heard. And it's interesting, Henry, because it talks about education in school. So I'm going to take time for questions. I'm going to upload the podcast into the chat versus just giving you the link to the podcast, because now it's a very popular podcast and now it has a bunch of commercials in it. But I downloaded it before it had all of that. So I'm going to just upload the file into the chat, and I want you to listen to it because it's an amazing podcast. It's Malcolm Gladwell's Miss Buchanan's Period of Adjustment, and it's from his revisionist history podcast. So I'm going to upload it into the chat, and I want you to download the MP4 because it's really a powerful podcast. So it's uploading now. I want you to download it, and I want you to listen to it. And when we come back for my session, we're going to I'm going to expose you to some more design thinking tools that you can use immediately, and you can put into play. And these tools will help you really get some good creative thinking, new ways of doing. It's powerful. You like it. But I wanted to set the foundation today, introduce you some language, and just some tools that I want you to be excited about and think about, how you can be more impactful in the work that you're doing by leaning on some technology and new ways of doing, new terms, seeing the world differently. So download that podcast, listen to it. I'll make sure we have some time to have a little bit of discussion about that, and you'll have that to go. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. No, that's all right. I could put that in the chat right now, and we'll make sure we put that in the follow-up items as well. But yes, I did have the hold on with those. Mm-hmm. Cool. Boom. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's it. Keisha, did you mean the link to the podcast? Because no. You're welcome. Yes. Okay, good. All right. All right. Just a reminder, this has like about 15 commercials in it. So if you're like in the drones and then you hear about Walmart, I can't help you. It's gonna throw you, but yeah. Okay, excellent. All right, was everybody able to download the file? Listen to that podcast. It's a game changer. And it just shows you even the power of storytelling, even the things that we believe, we could be wrong, could be different. So yes. All right, good. Any thoughts or questions, comments before we wrap it up? Okay, good people. I'll see you soon. Sarah, I hand it back to you.
Hey, well, thank you, Dr. Madden, for another great and insightful training. We certainly appreciate you. Just as a reminder, we will work on getting today's recording posted to the Elevate Youth California website, as well as the materials and videos that have been shared in the chat. So thank you again, and we look forward to the next training.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yay.